What is up, you guys? We got a great show lined up for you here today. Johnny Walker versus Jamahal in a main event slot here, taking place this upcoming Saturday. We're going to recap the big UFC 271 card. I got a very interesting story to share with you guys. It's MMA related, of course. It's about a specific fighter. I think you guys will find it interesting. I'm going to be sharing that here in a minute. And then we'll brush upon the Super Bowl as well. We go 2 for 2 with the football plays over at SBW. We got to talk a little bit of football talk. I'll make it very brief. But another UFC card ahead of us. Let's not waste any time. Let's get into it.
Welcome to the show. This is the MMA fortune teller. Yeah.
The MMA fortune teller.
The teller.
You guys, real quick, you know that offer is still on the table. If you're looking for a new sports book, reach out to me. I'll give you my referral link, and let me give you the details so I get credit for that referral. I will give you an entire weekend of free bets from my SBW Sports Betting Weekly picks and from my fortune teller picks here, of course, for on the MMA side of things. So that's a great value there. That's a $50 value for the weekend there. You get that for free if you just sign up through my referral link, and it's always much appreciated. Bovada.lv, in my opinion, is the best online sports book out. So I really highly recommend you work with them anyway. If you guys are interested in working with me for my official plays and you're not even looking to sign up through for Bovada and you just want my official plays, do not hesitate to reach out to me as well, and I will give you my pricing. I'd love to work with you guys. I'm expecting a solid weekend here for this fight card. All right, guys. What is up, you guys? Fight night, Jamahal versus Johnny Walker. Unfortunately, we did lose a major fight on this fight card. Rafael Fiziev versus RDA, Rafael Dos Anjos. But that will be moved to a card that's coming up here in the near future, early March. The big event that's taking place over in Jacksonville. Of course, the Colby Covington versus Jorge Masvidal fight, the centerpiece of that card. So we get a solid fight added to that fight card. I guess we could look at it a little bit as an investment. We'll be missing out on that fight this upcoming weekend, but it's right around the corner anyway. This fight card, not the biggest fight card, as you guys know. The main event is an exciting fight. You got Daukaus versus Pickett as a co-main event slot. I mean, you guys know I love Kyle, but I mean, as a main event slot against Jamie Pickett, that kind of sums up the card. You got the legend Jim Miller taking on an up-and-comer Nikolas Motta. I mean, this fight here, Joaquin Buckley taking on Abdul Razak Alhassan, is one of the more exciting fights on this fight card. That's what I'm looking forward to. Other than that, though, it's a little weak here. Not a lot of fights in the card. I got to give this fight card a D. If I'm being honest, but you guys know the routine. I'll say it again. As giant fight fans, we're excited for any fight card that's taking place any given weekend, especially when it's a UFC. If it has that UFC brand on it. I mean, it is what it is. We're still talking about the best fighters in the world. So today we're going to be recapping UFC 271. You guys know the routine there. We'll have timestamps below, like always. Very briefly, I do want to just touch upon real quick the Super Bowl. Did you guys enjoy the Super Bowl? For those of you guys that are football fans, I did. I had a major play on the Los Angeles Rams, straight up money line 6-unit play. I gave that to you guys free over on my other channel, SBW. It's below in the bio if you guys want to go hit that subscribe. I'm always giving free plays over there. We also had a prop bet that I gave out, which was the Rams over 3.5 sacks, 2-unit play. Even odds. They had about 8 sacks in the game, covered quite easily. And again, I'm giving these plays out for free over in SBW. And same thing as what's going on over here. I got the studio being worked on, so you could expect big things coming from SBW when I have the entire studio set up. So for you guys that are sports fans in general that bet on all types of sports, please do go support me. And of course, I got the Instagram Sports Betting Weekly. You can go follow me over there as well. So just wanted to brush upon that. And for those of you guys that are football fans, please tell me your thoughts on the game. I thought it was a good one. Came down to the wire. But back to fight talk. I know some of you guys are here that don't want to listen to any of that type of talk. You guys are strictly fight fans, I'm sure. There's a few of you guys out there. Now, I did say I had an interesting story to share with you guys. I found it kind of funny. Some of you guys know that recent situation, which I got to be careful how I talk. I don't want to say too much, but there was that recent situation with JP Bays and Cheyenne now Vlismas. You guys know that whole thing that went on. We kind of talked about it here in the show a little bit. I ended up getting a DM from Cheyenne Vlismas this past week, and I don't want to go in too much in detail, but she had some choice words for the teller, and I went back and forth a little bit. And I'm sure for those of you guys that kind of know the background of what we talked about recently in that whole situation, and she was actually quite cordial, and actually she came at me pretty respectable. So I just want to say that much. And, I don't want to go on too much about that situation, man. It's really none of my business. But you guys know this channel is about the entirety of the UFC and what's going on in the MMA world and community. So some of you guys are interested in that type of stuff. It does relate to the fights too. But I thought it was pretty interesting. She did shoot me a DM, and we went back and forth for quite a bit. And it's not really... it wasn't your typical slide in the DM type of conversation. So just to clarify that, but just to let you guys know, man, and maybe I'll talk more about that down the line. But as of right now, I'll just leave it at that. But I will say this: she did come at me very respectable, and I'll give her credit for that. So I'm not really going to go on about that situation anymore. But I thought that was pretty funny. I thought some of you guys would find that interesting. But let's get back to these fights. So UFC 271, we had the big middleweight championship match up there. We had 4 official plays locked in for the card. We end up hitting 2 of the 4. So we're going to brush upon those. Right away to kick things off, we did have a 1-unit play, a very minuscule play here. I did take a shot on William Knight to take out Maxim Grishin. I know he came in came in overweight, actually breaking the UFC record. Which I thought it was pretty funny too. For those of you guys that follow me on IG, I tagged Rafael Alves before William Knight missed weight in this fight. Rafael Alves had the record for the largest amount of discrepancy in weight missing with 11.5, I believe it was. William Knight missed weight, I believe it was by 12 pounds. Just to clarify something, because I saw some of you guys saying, oh, why would you back a guy that misses weight? If you actually look into the analytics from fighters that miss weight, it's right around 50-50 right now. You really can't say fighters that miss weight are more prone to losing the fight. That's not necessarily true. It does give them an advantage in some sense too. They don't have the hard weight cut. They're carrying some extra weight. And I knew that fight was going to come down to the fact that if William Knight could have stuffed the takedowns of Grishin. But William Knight looked very suspect in that fight. I was actually a little bit surprised to see him look the way that he did in that fight. This is a fighter that's young in his MMA career. I was expecting to see more and more growth from him, and he looked a little shady in that fight. And Maxim Grishin, he brought the fight and he took the fight there. And I'm not really that high on Grishin, but he handled business. And William Knight had some moments in the third round, but it wasn't enough. And we'll just chalk it up as a 1-unit loss there. Jeremiah Wells takes out Blood Diamond. This was a fight in retrospect. I probably should have had some action here on Jeremiah Wells. I really thought there was an avenue for Jeremiah Wells to exploit Blood Diamond's grappling. It's exactly what he did. Jeremiah Wells is a fighter that's ferocious on the feet with the striking, but now has shown that he's very cerebral in the cage as well. This guy had a game plan. He went out there, he executed it. I love the way he did that. So this is a guy that has shown that he can be a killer in there, but he could also stick to a game plan. He's well-rounded. The broadcast team talked about his jiu-jitsu skills as well. This is a guy that maybe not a lot of you guys know. He's a well-rounded fighter. He has jiu-jitsu skills too, and he showed it. Blood Diamond, we'll see if he gets another opportunity. I think that he got his opportunity in the UFC so early here. It was a little bit of a product of being very close with Israel Adesanya. Of course, we talked about that going into the fight card. Douglas Silva de Andrade takes out Sergey Mrazov. That fight was crazy. Mrazov dominates the early portion of the fight. Hit Andrade with a nasty elbow in his guard. It really looked like this was Sergey's fight all day up until that point in time. And then all of a sudden there was a complete momentum shift towards the second round. Big props to Andrade. This guy showed to have the heart of a lion. We know he's a very technical striker. He started to land some big shots, and eventually he hurt Sergey bad, and Sergey basically gave up the choke there. Andrade is up there in age, but let's keep an eye on him in the division for the next couple years. He still has some gas left in the tank, and he has some more to deliver. Jacob Malcoon takes out AJ Dobson. This was my other loss here. This one, this was the difference of this card being a very profitable night for me, hitting 4 bets with only that one unit loss. It would have been a very big card for me, but things did not go my way here in this fight. So unfortunately, we had to split. AJ Dobson, this was a guy that going into this fight has shown to be very dangerous in the feet with his striking. He's been training with Mark Coleman. He's been around guys like Matt Brown for a long time, involved in a lot of Matt Brown's fight camps. I know not a lot of AJ Dobson's fights have went past the first round. But you know what? Being around those types of guys, I had some faith in him there. I thought he was the more talented, athletic fighter. And Jacob Malcoon is a guy we've seen put out, get starched in the feet in his UFC debut. We know he has the wrestling and grappling. I thought Dobson would have been able to nullify that grappling and really hurt him and work him on the feet. We saw some opportunities there. Dobson wins the first round and then completely fades in that fight. It was very frustrating to watch for me. It is what it is. We take that loss there. Ronnie Lawrence defeats Motta Martinez. Ronnie Lawrence is a stud. I know he got hurt at the end of the third round. Actually had the pleasure of chatting it up with him on IG. I guess after the fight, he ran straight to his IG and was just looking at all types of comments that people sent him. So he's pretty cool. Sent me a little quick message back. I was just letting him know, don't hold your head low, for that little mishap you had in the third round, because you're a very promising fighter in the division, and he shot some respect back to me. So I really do believe Ronnie Lawrence has some legit potential. Dropping Motta Martinez in the feet, using the wrestling. Very well-rounded fighter, and I think Motta Martinez will learn from this fight. He'll be back. We saw him drop Ronnie in the third round. We know his striking's ferocious. It's nasty. He just needs to groom his the entirety of his game there. Carlos Ulberg, this was my big play on the fight on the card here. I took him to take out Fabio Cherant. I will pull this up real quick. We had a 5-unit play. I grabbed the line nice and early, minus 230. I was actually almost going to make this a max play, to be honest with you guys. And this was very much a fade of Fabio Cherant. I will say this, though. I was very surprised to see how Carlos Ulberg looked, because he did not look as good as he looked in his UFC debut. Even though he lost that fight, he looked amazing before he faded. His striking was... it looked a lot more sharp, really, than in this fight. In this fight, his hands were down very much. He ate a couple shots. He was a little bit hesitant in there at times. I was not impressed. He wasn't throwing as many kicks as I thought that he could have. And Fabio Cherant is a guy that gives you opportunities to put him out and to finish him. And Carlos was not able to make that happen. I was surprised here. But even in that, Carlos Ulberg gets the unanimous decision, and that's the type of fight it was. Even on an off day for Ulberg, he was still going to win this fight. I think Ulberg wins this fight 90-something times out of 100, really. The only fights he would lose is if he did get caught on the chin with his hands down at times. Fabio threw some heavy hooks, but he's a guy that really shouldn't be fighting in the UFC, in my opinion, if I'm being quite honest, from what I've seen. And we cashed that. And that's the type of fight, again, you had to be on that line nice and early, because it did get steamed. And the line did get pretty hefty towards the start of the fight. I think it even hit that minus, what was it at, man? Minus 270, 280. I think it was up there. So you have to be on these lines early. But we hit that play there that brought in some good profit back. And then, Kyler Phillips, man, this guy, enter the matrix. He looked amazing in this fight. This is a guy that's a real prospect, I guess we can call him. I don't even know if prospect's the right word. He's a guy that's really starting to work his way towards the top of the division. Extremely well-rounded. This guy is a career martial artist. He has the jiu-jitsu pedigree. He has the striking. Forget it. I mean, this guy is a Sean O'Malley type of striker. It's that new age, very, very diverse type of striking. He's really going to outclass guys. He needs to be careful throwing all those spinning attacks, and as far as not blowing his load there, not gassing out in his fights. We saw that in the Julian Paiva fight, where he kind of faded. He has to be careful throwing all those spinning attacks, but even with his regular boxing, I mean, this kid looks amazing there. Looked amazing in there the other night, and I'm very high on Kyler Phillips, so I'm excited to see who he gets matched up with next. Rojo is a tough customer, but eventually gets submitted. Casey O'Neill gets the victory here. She breaks the record for the most significant strikes on Roxanne Modafferi in Modafferi's retirement fight. And one of the judges actually gave the fight to Roxanne. I thought that was pretty disgusting. And I know Roxanne had a takedown or two, and I love Roxanne. I was rooting for her to win the fight. But you can't have that happening in the game. You cannot have these judges giving fights to fighters that clearly lost the fight. It's really a black eye for the game, and really, I don't care if you had money on Roxanne Modafferi or not, you can't be happy to see those types of things. And that same judge was judging the Andre Arlovski versus Jared Vanderaa fight. I don't know. You guys got to comment below. I thought Andrei Arlovski clearly won rounds 1 and 2. I don't care what the significant strike stats showed in those first 2 rounds. Andrei Arlovski, run the tape back. He was outclassing him. He was landing the heavy shots. He was landing all the shots to the head. It was boxing Jared's head ears off, as McGregor likes to say there. Jared Vanderaa a couple times throughout those rounds held Arlovski against the cage, threw a couple knees to the thighs. And those were counted as significant strikes, but that doesn't tell the story of a fight, man. You guys got to look at the fight. You guys got to be objective. I had my eyes glued to this fight because it was an official play of mine, and I was not biased. I promise you guys, run the tape back on this fight. I did have Andrei Arlovski, a 1-unit play at plus odds here to win by decision, had that prop bet, and that's exactly what he did. That's now 9 fights in a row that Arlovski has won that he has gone to a decision. He does not look to put his opponents out, and that's what I saw on tape, and that's why I capitalized on that. Rather than targeting the minus 150 line, I'm taking those dog odds there. Arlovski uses his footwork. Even if he lands a big shot, he retreats, he circles. He's not really going in there to put you out. Vanderaa is a tough customer, and that's why I attacked that play there. But run the tape back. I don't care what any of you guys say. Run the tape back. Andrei Arlovski clearly won rounds 1 and 2, and then Vanderaa, he brought the fight a little bit in the third round, was clinching up. You know, he was aggressing. He was walking forward, giving that third round. But come on, guys. All right. Let's see here. Yeah, that did wrap up my play, so I'll sum that up real quick. So we went 2 for 2. We hit that dog play there, and very, very minuscule losses in the card, almost a stalemate. Basically, we go 2 for 2, and it is what it is. Bobby Green takes out Nasrat Haqparast. Bobby Green looked phenomenal in that fight. I'm really getting hyped up with Bobby Green's performances as of recently. I want to see him start to get some big name fights. We heard Anik mentioning he's deserving of a main event fight. I tend to agree with that. I think that Bobby Green is really becoming a star in the game. Kind of reminds me a little bit of Nate Diaz or Jorge Masvidal, a guy that's been around the game forever and starting to get that notoriety late in his career. And he's delivering, and he has kind of that star power. I'm a big fan of Bobby Green's. I want to see him get a big name. I mentioned maybe a fight against Gregor Gillespie or Mateusz Gamrot coming up, and that's just based on the fact that a lot of other fighters in the top of the division, in the lightweight division, are kind of matched up right now. So those are the fights that make sense as far as he gets that victory there, and then we're talking about him really getting respect with the rankings and whatnot, and then getting those big star fights. So I think that's the way to go. But again, big shout out to Bobby Green for an amazing performance. Some of the best boxing in the game right now. Renato Moicano, a very, very impressive performance against Alexander Hernandez. Moicano has the train back on the tracks. This is a guy that's going to start getting some real respect again after being finished a couple times in some of his fights. But a guy that's so well-rounded. I loved him on the mic after the fight. Done very, very nicely there. Jared Cannonier, as you young folks like to say, no cap. Jared Cannonier is a play that I was very close to doing, and I hesitated on it. That's the truth there, man. I was very, very close, and I was kicking myself all night. Of course, I threw some money on him, but that should have been an official play. I saw an avenue for him to win this fight. You guys know we all talked about it during fight week. But I respected Blonde Brunson, and Brunson looked good in the first round, but I thought Cannonier's cardio and takedown defense would have been enough to keep the fight on the feet, and eventually he would land some big shots on Brunson. Eventually, he gets that nasty elbow down in the mat and puts him out. Tai Tuivasa takes out Derek Lewis. Wow, man, this was a crazy, crazy fight. Big respect to Tai Tuivasa for eating those shots from Derek Lewis. Nobody takes those shots. I mean, if that was Chris Daukaus, he's getting folded up like a chair. Tai Tuivasa is as durable as it comes, and then he shows that, of course, he can land that big time power as well, putting out Derek Lewis. Derek Lewis is a guy, as much power as he has, and being the all-time UFC knockout holder. If we're being honest, Derek Lewis is a guy that does get folded up. If you start to tag him up, his chin's not the best, actually. If you really look into some of his losses, he's been put out quite a few times. So that's something to keep an eye on there moving forward. A big time respect for Tai Tuivasa, and he's a guy that's becoming a star in the game. And I saw this golfer Karen McSidney pays homage to Tai Tuivasa on the golf course, throwing up a shoey, paying homage to Tai Tuivasa. So he's becoming but then I say I just made that up because if you guys check the video out, because I did just make that up, but I came across that video and she was doing the shoey. Maybe she was paying homage to Tai Tuivasa. Maybe her name really is Karen McSidney. You never know. The odds are probably not, but you know, but the point I'm making is Tai Tuivasa is becoming a star in the game. I truly believe that. He has star power, but his abilities are also something that's really coming around, and I think that he has potential to fight with the best of the best, and eventually maybe even fight for that gold. It's funny. A couple fights ago, you really wouldn't imagine that, but right now, I think you can honestly say that there's that type of potential. Then you got the main event fight. Israel Adesanya versus Robert Whittaker. I picked Israel Adesanya to win, and of course, we couldn't pick against Izzy here. Izzy is showcasing some of the best striking that we've ever seen in the octagon right now. Now, I will say this. I thought Robert Whittaker played this fight horribly. I'm going to go in on Whittaker real quick here. For Whittaker to say that he thought he won the fight was disgusting, because he clearly lost the fight. He clearly lost 3 rounds. I think you could say he lost 4 rounds. He was very hesitant. He was very nervous. And I understand he got knocked out. He got starched by Izzy in the first fight. He was a little bit worrisome that would have happened again. Israel Adesanya, an amazing striker, but Robert Whittaker, in my opinion, should have been a lot more aggressive in this fight. When he was actually throwing, he was landing a lot more than Izzy. I'm not talking about leg kicks. I'm talking about with the hands to the face. Robert Whittaker was landing that left jab, that little hybrid jab hook that he throws, was landing it at will, rocking Izzy's head back. I think if Robert Whittaker would have made it a war and been very aggressive, yeah, he could have been clipped and put out himself, but I think the odds actually increased him to win the fight. We saw him sneak in some takedowns. I thought if they would have engaged more in a war, it would have gave him more opportunities to go in for those takedowns, maybe snatch the back up. You saw him snatch the back that one time when he engaged, but Izzy was able to get out of that that position. I wouldn't say with ease, but he did it pretty good. And Izzy's becoming a more and more well-rounded fighter. But again, you got to bring the fight to Izzy. You saw Kelvin Gastelum bring the fight and really have some success and within those first 4 rounds there in that fight. But again, I got to give props to Izzy here. And I just want to say this. I know a lot of you guys think I'm not a fan of Izzy's, because I'm not. I'm really not. He's not really my type of guy. Not really into like the type of guys that I don't mind, like the Chuck Liddell, maybe a little bit of the paint in the toenails, which I really wasn't crazy about. But you're coming in with the French manicure on the fingers, bro. I'm not really too crazy about that. You know, dyeing his hair and stuff like that. He's just a little... he's not my type of guy, and the way he's on the mic. Some things I like that he says, some things I don't. He's very slick. He's very quick-witted, but I'm really not a fan of some of the things that he does. He's kind of, I don't know, man. It's not really my type of guy, to be quite honest. I don't know. What do you guys think about the French manicure and all that? I don't know. But either way, he's a phenomenal fighter, and that's what it is. So. But I thought the line was a little high in him, in my opinion, so that's why I wasn't really targeting him in a parlay. I do have respect for Whittaker, and but that's how the fight went. Big shout out to Israel Adesanya for coming through once again and being one of the best fighters in the world. All right, so that recaps UFC 271. Let's go swing over to this upcoming fight card. So in the first fight of the card, we got Jonathan JSP Pearce taking on Christian Rodriguez. This is a fight that's very intriguing to me, and I think that this fight should be a little bit more towards the top of the fight card, if you ask me. This is one of the more exciting fights for real fight fans that know what we're watching here. Christian Rodriguez, 7-0, one of the top prospects in the MMA game right now, a Rufus Sport product. Came through on his Dana White's Contender Series fight against Junior Cortez, showcased the striking, bounced back with another victory because he did not get the contract after that fight. And that was a fight that people were questioning why he didn't get the contract, but he's extremely young. I thought it was the right move by Dana. Let him get another victory, then get a chance in the UFC. Takes out Ryan McIntosh, a guy that I believe he has a losing record or a very bad record, so not really too impressed with the level of opponent, but getting more experience under his belt. Jonathan Pearce is a guy that has looked phenomenal as of recently. We saw him with that rear naked choke over Omar Morales, using the ground game to take out Kai Kamaka. Now, he did get starched by Joe Lozon in his debut, coming in undefeated, but I think that was a little bit more of a fluke, if I'm being honest. I think he got caught, maybe a little bit of octagon jitters, wasn't... maybe he should have been a little bit more settled. He ran into that punch there. But Jonathan Pearce has looked phenomenal. And Christian Rodriguez is a kid. He's very young, that I am very high on. I think there's some real potential with him. So I'm very excited to see who comes out on top in this fight. And I think that the winner, or I shouldn't even really say the winner really has potential. Both these guys still will have potential. I think they're going to clash here, but both these guys have some real potential. Now, as far as how this fight breaks down, Christian Rodriguez, in my opinion, the more skilled striker. Christian Rodriguez has looked very, very good in the feet from what I've seen from him. You guys know Duke Roufus is one of the best striking coaches in the game, and let alone one of the best MMA coaches in the game and minds in the game. So Christian Rodriguez is really surrounded by some great people, Paul Felder, all those types of guys. You guys know the deal over there, the Pettis brothers. There's a world of talent over there. He's only 24 years old. He's still extremely young. And I think that Jonathan Pearce in this fight is going to try to implement his will with the wrestling. That's really where he's had success as of recently. So I think that's what he should try to do. Now, in Christian Rodriguez's fight on Dana White's Contender Series, he was controlled a little bit by Junior Cortez. Cortez had some moments where he was able to kind of use his strength to hold him against the cage. But once Rodriguez was able to spin out of that type of stuff, he was really able to showcase his boxing. It's very clean. He has kicks to go along with that as well. He's a very diverse striker. I'm going to slightly edge Christian Rodriguez on the feet here. Jonathan Pearce can also he can also throw down on the feet. I think Pearce will be the stronger guy. He's going to have a little bit of more man strength. He's almost 30 years old now. He's a little bit more naturally large, coming in at 6 foot. Both these guys will have the same reach, though. I think that Jonathan Pearce is going to have an opportunity to kind of wear on Christian and hold him against the cage here. Maybe he gets his fight down to the mat as well and does some of those phenomenal things that he's done in his last 2 fights. There's potential for that as well. I do believe that Rodriguez is pretty well versed down in the mat too, so it won't be a walk in the park to go out there and just submit him or ground and pound him. But if Christian Rodriguez can keep this fight on the feet, he definitely has an avenue to pull this victory off. We're talking about a blue chip prospect here in Christian Rodriguez, so don't be shocked if he goes in there and he shows up. I mean, the kid can fight. All right, so we take a look at the live line on this fight. I found it to be a little interesting. Christian Rodriguez coming in right around a plus 260 underdog coming into this fight here. But that's just, giving a little respect to what JSP has done as of recently, being the more mature and older fighter. I will side with Jonathan Pearce to win this fight. I think I have to at this point, as good as he's looked. And Christian Rodriguez being a little bit younger, a little bit weaker, I would say, and he needs to work on his physical strength a little bit more so. I could see Pearce hanging on him, wearing on him, and as long as Pearce doesn't get caught with the shot like we saw in that Lozon fight, I think he should be able to string off a decision here. But don't be surprised if Rodriguez catches him, or we see another big step up in his game with the takedown defense and the footwork, and he just goes in there and shines. So don't be surprised, and understand that Christian Rodriguez is a very talented fighter, and the pick is going to be Jonathan Pearce. From a betting perspective, let me make it clear, though, to you guys real quick again. I think the line values Rodriguez a little bit more. Let me be clear saying that. We got Gabriel Benitez trying to make his way to the octagon. He's had some problems as of recently with some of his fights falling apart. Looking to take on David Onama if he can make it to the cage there this Saturday. David Onama, the Glory and MMA fitness product, under James Krause, that's always a solid thing. David Onama, the silent assassin, came into his UFC debut undefeated, did take that L against Mason Jones, a guy that also was undefeated going into the UFC in his debut, and he ended up losing as well. So some similarities there. I will say this. That loss that he took against Mason Jones, I think that Mason Jones is a pretty hot prospect. He's a very talented fighter, and Jones was able to really wear on him and hang on him. But Onama showed in that fight that he is capable with his grappling as well. There was numerous times where he was put in some vulnerable positions, and he was able to reverse himself out of it, get the fight back up to his feet. His striking is pretty decent as well. He's a well-rounded fighter, and I think that he has some skills to bring to the table here. Gabriel Benitez, a guy that has looked phenomenal in certain fights with his striking, showing to be very well versed with his hands, some big power in his boxing, throwing knees up the middle, cracking the body on certain fighters. Remember him getting the finish against Justin James, looked phenomenal there. Finishing Humberto Bendene as well. And then the Sadiq Yusuff fight looked very, very good in that fight with his boxing before he got caught. But as of now, lost 3 of his last 4 fights. This is a big-time fight for him, the AKA product here. In this fight, he will have a 3-inch reach disadvantage. He's going to be 3 inches shorter. He's a little bit undersized going into this fight, and I think that could be a problem for him here because not only from a size standpoint, but also from a skill standpoint, I think Onama is the fighter I'm going to slightly edge. So now this is going to be a little bit of a tough fight for Benitez, in my opinion. But keep in mind that Benitez is an absolute dog. Like I said, he has power in his hands, and when he's hitting on all cylinders inside the octagon, he can really, really shine in there. He has good boxing. He has some heavy leg kicks. He's an unorthodox type of fighter, has that southpaw stance. It does give fighters problems at times. We'll see how Onama settles in against the unorthodox type of striker there. But having a coach like James Krause in his corner, I think he's going to be well prepared here. And, Onama getting taken down a couple times in his fight with the tough Welshman who we talked about earlier, Mason Jones. Again, he did look like he needed to or he needs to sharpen up some things with his takedown defense at times. But the way he was able to bounce back up, work his way back up to his feet, I was impressed with that as well. And I expect him to only be better this time around now. Of course, that's what we can expect. He had that UFC debut now. He's got that out the way. And now he can go into this fight feeling a little bit more at home. And I will be taking David Onama to win this fight. We're going to take a look at the live line. Onama right now, right around a -155 to a -160 type of range on him. With the comeback on Gabriel Benitez at +135. I feel the value is probably more in Onama at -155. Initially, I was possibly seeing some value on Benitez or with the dog odds. I think he is a dog. Like I said, he'll bring the fight. He's live here to an extent, but something tells me that Onama will be the better fighter here, and I expect to see some growth in his game, and we'll see if he's a fighter that we can look to keep an eye on moving forward, if he could really shine here. This is a big opportunity for him, and I'll say once again, having James Krause polishing him up is really a good thing for him with the potential he has, so we'll see how he performs. David Onama to win the fight there. Jessica Rose Clark taking on Stephanie Egger. It's a tricky fight here. We're going to get into the details here, but Jessica Rose Clark has looked very good in her last 2 fights, taking out Jocelyn Edwards and Sarah Alpar. We know that Jessica Rose Clark has not been that active throughout the years. I remember a little nostalgia here. I remember taking Jessica Rose Clark against Paige Van Zandt. That was an underdog play. I think I grabbed that line at +135 back in the day. It's kind of interesting just thinking about some old fights there. Jessica Rose Clark is a girl that really can push her opponent against the cage. She can really control her opponent with her strength. She's been working on her striking throughout the years. And now in her last fight against Jocelyn Edwards, she really, really shined with her wrestling. Or really, I should even say the Sarah Alpar fight. She really shined there as well. She's looked like a beast in her last 2 fights. Penny Kianzad was able to kind of style on her in the feet a little bit. Jessica Ai, the more naturally larger fighters, she was able to use her boxing a little bit to sneak off the victory. But Jessica Rose Clark has looked good as of recently. She's 34 years old. She's no spring chicken. Meanwhile, Stephanie Egger, 33, but a girl that's a little bit more new to the MMA side of things. She has that judo background. She's a judokian black belt. She's been working on her striker. She really has a solid physique, to enter the MMA game with her judo background and whatnot. But she definitely has to catch up on some things, right? Her striking, she has her long arms. She has that nice reach. It's at 68 inches, and she's able to use some of her length there against some of these fighters that she's been in there with. I mean, she looked good in her last fight against Shayna Young. She was able to really to use her length in that fight, and we saw her striking coming around a little bit in that fight, but I'm not necessarily that high on Shayna Young. I think Jessica Rose Clark is definitely a step up here. Now, in her fight against Tracy Cortez, even with that judo background, having those hips, Cortez was able to kind of use her wrestling there and kind of exploit Stephanie Egger's ground game. And I think Jessica Rose Clark has that avenue as well. I'm interested to see how this fight plays out on the feet. Jessica Rose Clark usually has some pretty good footwork, and she can work her way into the inside and use her boxing there. I edge that to be more the case than Egger using her footwork and using her distance to land her punches at the end. To be fully extended out, landing her shots at the end of her reach, which is what she needs to do. But I think Rose Clark will win that battle of the footwork and get in the inside a little bit more so. Of course, the it factor being Jessica Rose Clark uses her wrestling and really clinches up and smothers Egger against the cage and gets some takedowns, gets in on her hips and her legs. But again, keep an eye on for Egger with the judo skills. If you're lacking there, if you don't have right position, I mean, Egger can judo throw you, and I'm sure this is a girl that will see major strides in her game every fight that we see her in there. So that's also an X factor. And again, she really comes in phenomenal shape, and she has a very interesting physique for the division. But seems a little slow at times. I got to edge Jessica Rose Clark here, and we'll take a look at the live line. Jessica Rose Clark, almost around a 2-1 favorite, basically, at this point, with Egger right around a plus 160 up to a plus 175. This is a fight that I wouldn't be shocked if it plays out a little bit closer than that line. I edge Jessica Rose Clark. But again, Stephanie Egger finding herself as far as from an MMA side of things. She's finding herself. She's learning the game. She's getting more comfortable fighting in the UFC at fight to fight. And don't be shocked if we see some major growth in her game and this fight plays out closer. It's an interesting fight there. But Jessica Rose Clark is the fighter I think you have to edge here, and you have to side with, as phenomenal as she looked in her last 2 fights. We got an extremely close matchup here in the strawweight division. Diana Belbiţă taking on Gloria De Paula. This is a fight. I took a look at the line. Of course, you see the line extremely close, so you have options here. Whenever you see a pick'em line like that, I mean, you could pick your poison. I was hoping I would have seen a little bit more of an edge from one specific fighter here, but I'm going to be quite honest. This fight, when you break down the film on them, it really, really does cap even. It really does. Diana Belbiţă coming off a victory against Hannah Goldie. That was a fight where she looked very, very aggressive in that fight. We saw some strides with her striking. She was really landing some solid punches on Goldie there. Now, in the 3rd round, she was taken down and actually mounted by Hannah Goldie when Hannah Goldie looked to really step on the gas there. So some holes in Belbiţă's wrestling, I would say so. She's been shown to be taken down a little bit and kind of work there. She's shown to make some elementary mistakes, getting submitted by Liana Jojua, one of the worst fighters. I believe she may have been cut now, but probably the worst fighter on the UFC roster, and she fell into an armbar trap of hers. That's something you got to keep an eye on there. Gloria De Paula is definitely well versed on the mat. But again, Diana Belbiţă did look good to me in that last fight with her aggression throughout those first 2 rounds. She looked very, very aggressive. She's extremely tough. Now, as far as from a look standpoint, I mean, she has the look of a future star. Now, I don't know about her skills, but this is a fighter that will be fun to tune in to watch if she could hang around. I like what she brings to the table from that standpoint, and. But again, an extremely tough fighter as well. You got to respect the heart of Belbiţă. This is a girl that goes in there and looks to rip your head off, and I like that. Now, her opponent, though, Gloria De Paula, a very talented fighter who really has had a tough time in her last 2 fights. After winning her Dana White's Contender Series fight, seeming to be one of the hotter prospects in the division from the women's side of things, and then goes in there, loses to Jinh Yu Frey, gets taken down a little bit, and then also gets taken out by Cheyenne Vlismas, and that was the fight where she got starched early with that nasty head kick. Both of these fighters are lacking in takedown defense. I'm very interested to see who's the fighter that kind of implements the takedown, or I shouldn't even say takedown, because these fighters even they kind of trip on their feet. If you kind of bum rush them with shots, they fall back on their back, both of them. So I'm interested who's going to be the fighter that kind of leans back more so. And my gut kind of tells me Gloria will be the girl that kind of falters to her back more so, because Diana's a little bit more aggressive and a little bit more confident in herself. But then also keep in mind that if it does fall down to the mat, Gloria is confident in her guard and her submission skills. And Diana Belbiţă is a girl that's been submitted by Liana Jojua. So, I mean, don't be shocked if Gloria De Paula pulls off an armbar or a triangle or anything like that. Both girls very young. Both girls have a lot of room for growth. Belbiţă a little bit more of the naturally large fighter. Not by much, but a little bit taller. Slight half-inch reach advantage. I give the edge to Belbiţă here solely based on the fact I think that she is really starting to get some confidence, and she's a very aggressive fighter, whereas Gloria will be a little bit more on the back foot. But I think that Gloria is a little bit more talented when she's hitting on all cylinders. So this is an interesting fight here. This is a very interesting fight. I've been very back and forth. I think I had Gloria De Paula to win this fight before I hopped on the mic over here, and I think I just flip-flopped as I was just talking myself into the play. I'm serious. This is the kind of fight we're talking about here. I'm gonna pick Diana Belbiţă. I don't know why they call her Diana Belbur here. Maybe a shout out to the great Bill Burr. You know, I don't know what's up with that, but it's a pick 'em line here. Pick your poison. I'm gonna edge Diana Belbiţă right now as I'm talking about it. Maybe it changes on Saturday when I do my official picks in IG MMA Fortune Teller _ but I doubt it. It should stick Diana. But let's see how they look throughout the fight week. Let's see how they look at the stare downs. Diana should have the edge as far as aggression and confidence. Chaz Skelly, the scrapper, making his way back to the octagon. It's been quite some time. His last fight almost 2.5 years ago. He's taking on Mark Striegl, a guy that made his UFC debut against Said Nurmagomedov. That's a tough debut there, and he ran right into a shot, got put out. But we've been seeing that Said Nurmagomedov is one of the top prospects or top up-and-coming fighters in the game, a guy that's going to work his way towards the very, very top of the division. Now, I will say this much. Although Said looked very good in that fight, and we know how talented he is, Mark Striegl is definitely lacking with his striking defense and his head movement. I've seen him get tagged up a little bit on the feet in some of his fights, even in some of his wins. I'm not crazy about his striking. I mean, he's aggressive with his hands. He has some boxing skills, but from a defensive side of things, he's there to be hit for sure. Chaz Skelly, the scrapper, a very fitting nickname. If you guys have not seen his fight against Maximo Blanco, a fight that took place over in Asia, I believe in Japan, you need to watch this fight. It's very quick too, so you don't need a lot of time to watch it. Chaz Skelly runs across the octagon as soon as the bell rings. They were both sizing each other up, hits him with the 300 Sparta kick, and I believe he ended up pulling off a Darce choke an anaconda choke, excuse me. He ended up pulling off the anaconda choke. It was awesome. He hit him with that kick, started landing some shots, dropped him. One of the more exciting fights you'll ever see for as long as it lasted. Took out Chris Grutzmacher via rear naked choke, always showing that he has skills in the mat. Did lose to Jason Knight, guy that we haven't heard from in a while, a BKFC product now. Had the victory over Bobby Moffitt, was overturned for some type of reason. It might have been marijuana, something weird there. And then taking out Jordan Griffin, Jordan. And, so Chaz has not been that active. He's now 36 years old, but he's still a guy that I expect to come in phenomenal shape. I know he's taking this fight very serious. I know he's always in the gym. And he has that type of personality where if you know him, if you've seen interviews of him and whatnot, I mean, he's just a scrappy dude. He's a tough guy that when the bell rings, he's going to go out there and fight. I don't think he's the type of guy that's going to have ring rust or he's going to be second guessing himself. And especially against a guy like Mark Striegl, I really don't see it. Mark Striegl, a guy that was kind of a star over on the Asia side of things. He had a very solid record. He has all types of accolades from a martial arts standpoint. He's a guy that that has these types of medals and stuff through. I forget the name of. I don't even really know what the names of some of those competitions that he was participating in. But he's a Taekwondo. He's a guy that has trained Taekwondo since he's been young. He's trained wrestling since he was young. He's got into Muay Thai throughout the years, and obviously MMA now, of course, obviously with 21 professional fights. So he's just a career martial arts type of fighter. But when you really watch film on him, I'm not that impressed. He comes in phenomenal shape. He definitely hits the weights up and all that. But from a skill standpoint, he's there to be hit. And he doesn't have a lot of big names on his resume. I don't think that he's really fought high-level competition as much, even though he has 21 professional fights. He really hasn't been in there with top-level competition besides this fight here against Nurmagomedov, and he was starched in that fight. Whereas Skelly, yeah, it's been some time, but he's been in there with some guys. We could take a quick look, too. But, I mean, Skelly's been around the block. Jordan Griffin, UFC fighter. He's been in there with Darren Elkins. Maximo Blanco was a guy people used to respect back in the day. Jim Ehlers, former BKFC champ, a guy that is a solid fighter. Sean Seriano, a good fighter. Been in there with Mirsad Bektik when Bektik was in his prime. And I know these Daniel Pineda. I mean, but these are names that we know over here on this side of the world. And I'm not saying there's not great talent over on the Asia side of things, but I'm not really so read up on a lot of these guys. Now, the Kai Kara France was a big victory for him, the rear naked choke there. But other than that, not really a lot of notable names on his resume. This was definitely the biggest win of his career. But you break down the tape. I'm edging Chaz Skelly here. I just think that Chaz Skelly rises to the occasion here. It's been a while since he's been in there. But I wouldn't be surprised if he gets some type of submission here or he shines a little bit more in the grappling exchanges and just a little bit of a step ahead will have a 3.5-inch reach advantage. He'll be the taller, more rangy fighter here, a little bit more naturally large, the more naturally larger man. And I will side with Skelly here. And let's see if we can find a live line on this fight. We got Chaz Skelly right now almost at a minus 225, right around that range in some books, as low as a minus 200. And you guys don't roast me here for siding with the favorites, man. This is what I'm seeing when I'm breaking down this tape. I am not going to pick some of these fighters that I'm having a tough time picking. I really can't pick Striegl here from what I've seen, if I'm being honest. So don't be too harsh on me. Luckily, we have some fights where the lines are close, so I'm able to pick in that sense. We got another one coming up here in a second that's a close fight. But I got to side from what I see on tape here and how I see these fights going, guys. I got Chaz Skelly winning this fight. I think there's some potential for a finish as well, maybe some type of choke victory for Skelly. Now, you guys, real quick, for those of you guys that are wondering where the Khalid Taha fight went, the Khalid Taha fight versus Mario Batista, that fight has been scrapped. Taha had to withdraw. Details will be coming out very shortly. That just happened. So do understand that fight will not be taking place. And that was a fight that was coming in with a very close line. I was actually interested in this fight, but that's going to be on ice here for the meanwhile. So don't expect to see that fight taking place as of now. And that will bring us to Jesse Strader versus Chad Anheliger. Chad, a guy that came in as a pretty big dog in that Dana White's Contender Series fight and came through and showed that he's a real dog in the sense of his fighting spirit. An absolute pit bull in there. Took out Main Gafarov via split decision. He was a dog in that fight, though, and really showed up. A very tough Canadian fighter. A big victory over Brady Hastin. You guys know him from The Ultimate Fighter, a very talented prospect. He's now 11-5 as a pro, where you got Jesse Strader with only 7 professional fights. He went in there and fought Montel Jackson in his debut. And with all due respect, Strader was a guy that went into that fight with no confidence in himself. You could see it in that fight. He really wanted no part of Montel Jackson. And I get it. Montel Jackson's a very dangerous fighter. But you do want to see a little bit more confidence in a professional MMA fighter, man. And he went in there. He did get finished. Before that, 2 victories in a row. He had the pleasure of fighting Michael Jackson. A lot of you guys know him as the late pop star. A lot of people are familiar with Michael Jackson. He was able to go in there and finish him via punches. And rumor is that's what happened to Jackson's nose. A lot of people try to say that he was getting plastic surgery throughout the years and doing all types of weird stuff to his body, but that wasn't necessarily the case. Just unfortunately bumped into Jesse Strader. And then before that, a loss to Marcelo Rojo, who we just saw fight this past weekend, a very tough fighter. And Rojo got the finish against Strader. Let me cut to the chase here. Messing around with you guys a little bit, but Jesse Strader is a guy, looks to be coming in phenomenal shape into this fight. I am not too impressed from what I've seen from him in the cage, if I'm being quite honest. Doing some tricks here on the map, but I'm not a fan of his striking. It's very, very loopy and not polished at all. Definitely needs to work on his striking. Haven't been that impressed from what I've seen from him from a grappling standpoint, at least in the limited amount of tape I've seen on him in certain spots. Does come in great shape. The interesting thing about this fight here is he comes in as a big dog, comes in with a 6-inch reach advantage. He's an inch taller. He's the more naturally larger fighter. But Chad Anheliger is a guy that's lacking no confidence. I expect him to be on the gas pedal in this fight. I expect him to go in here and really handle business. There's a reason why. It's interesting because when I first saw this matchup, I was wondering why the line was so high on Anheliger when you looked at them very briefly. But when you break down the tape, you see exactly why the line is where it is, which is it's so interesting how sharp these bookmakers are with the lines. I mean, they got real pros capping these fights, and they know what they're doing. And when these lines open up, they're pretty accurate. And Chad Anheliger is a dog. He's a very well-rounded fighter. I expect him to be a step ahead of Jesse anywhere this fight goes. That's my pick. We take a look at the live line. He's almost a 3-1 favorite on some books, right around the upper minus 200 range there. And I think it's accurate. I do think it's accurate. But at the same time, Strader has that size advantage. We'll see if he's able to sharpen up his skill set and come in looking a little better. Maybe he's a little bit more confident after having that first UFC fight. But maybe not going in there and getting starched the way he did. Maybe that does a little disservice to his confidence. Who's to say that just because he was in the octagon once that he's more confident? He got starched, and maybe he's worried he's going to get starched again. Chad Ellinger, the monster, very fitting name. This guy is going to go in there and expect to dominate, and I think that's what he's going to do. And I got Chad Ellinger to win the fight. We got Parker Porter taking on Alan Baudot. I can't help myself, man, every time. The rumor is if you go into the bathroom, you shut the lights off, and you say 5 times very fast, Parker Porter, Parker Porter, Parker Porter, Parker Porter, he will show up to your house and take out all your Krispy Kremes and any type of Little Debbie snacks you have. I'm just joking. I can't help myself, and I shouldn't be doing that. But Parker Porter, a guy that actually is a is a very solid fighter, man. He's an underrated fighter. He came in to the UFC in his debut against Chris Daukaus. He got starched with his physique and all. I think that he was a guy that was very disrespected at that time. People really threw him under the bus, but he came back and looked very good against Josh Parisian and Chase Sherman. He's a guy that actually has some solid boxing skills. He's very, very tough, fighting out of Connecticut. I mean, he has that fighting spirit for sure. He's coming into this fight against a guy, Alan Baudot, who is a striking type of fighter coming out of the MMA factory over in France. You guys know some of the big names that have came out of there: Cyril Gane, Francis Ngannou. Another guy that has a very large frame and in the heavyweight division, and he is a striker for sure. He has some heavy leg kicks. Needs to sharpen up some things with his striking, though, too. Don't expect him to go out there and look like Cyril Gane with his jab, because that's not really the fighter he is. His straight punches have a little bit of a loop to them. Needs to polish some things up there. He's 8-2. Lost to Tom Aspinall, got starched, but Aspinall starches everybody. Got starched by Rodrigo Nascimento. That was a fight where he was actually winning when the fight started, and then Nascimento all of a sudden hit another gear in that fight. It was actually quite fun to watch a guy start off slow, get tagged up a little bit, and then all of a sudden just hit a switch and just take over that fight. And he put it on Baudot. That fight was overturned. I forget the reason why, but don't get it twisted. Baudot got starched in that fight by Nascimento too. So that's 2 fights in a row there. Parker Porter has all types of potential to do that. He will bring the fight. He will pressure you, and he will throw heavy shots on you. I tend to favor that Porter will be able to implement his boxing skills in this fight more so than Baudot sitting on the outside, whipping the leg kicks and trying to style on Porter with his kickboxing skills. I think the MMA type of fighter here, the more MMA type of skill set fighter in Porter, the more heavy boxing type style will prevail a little more so than Baudot whipping the leg kicks, trying to use that type of fighting style from the outside with the reach and whatnot, because Baudot has shown time and time again that he can't sustain that type of style. He'll start off trying to use his range, and then he lets the fighters close the distance on him. He doesn't like to be hit. If you get him against the cage, you start landing some heavy shots. He kind of folds up. I favor Porter here in this fight. I definitely do. And let me be clear, I got nothing but respect for the guy, man. I'm just joking around and whatnot. I think he's a tough dude, and I think that he could really he could hurt some guys in the octagon. I don't know how far he goes in the division, but he's a guy that can show up and he can knock some dudes out. He's very aggressive, and he's got some weight behind his punches. And he's coming into this fight as a pretty solid favorite, and right around a -250 across the board on all books. And we'll see what kind of line movement we get on this fight, but I definitely side with Porter to win the fight. And I also want to say, because I don't want to get in trouble for any of you guys, do not go into the mirror. Do not go in the bathroom, shut the lights off, and say into the mirror what I told you guys to say, because if anything happens, I'm not responsible for your guys' refrigerator in your kitchen. So all jokes aside, though, I'm definitely siding with Parker Porter here in this spot. It's a heavyweight fight. Things happen. We'll see if Baudot can sharpen some things up. But I side with Porter. Here. Now, this is a fight you do not want to miss on this fight card. This is definitely not the fight that you want to hop out back and go smoke a cigarette if you are a degenerate that still smokes cigarettes in 2022. I'm going to ruffle a couple of your guys' feathers there. You guys should not be smoking cigarettes in this day and age with the science and knowledge we have, but I'll just throw that at you real quick. If you need help quitting cigarettes, reach out to me. I'll help you out there. But, this is not the fight you want to miss no matter what you're doing. Let's put it like that. This fight very well may not last long. Both these guys have serious power and love to bring the fight as soon as that bell rings. Extreme striking abilities in both these guys. Joaquin Buckley, a guy that I've really became a fan of throughout his UFC career, which has not been long, bursted on the scene. Now, let's not forget, he did lose his debut against Kevin Holland, but still showed to be a very tough fighter. He brought the fight, and that fight got caught. Hits Impa Kasangane with quite possibly the most beautiful knockout that we've ever seen in all of MMA, right up there with the best of them in the UFC. Then he takes out Jordan Wright, showing the boxing skills once again. Gets caught by Alessio De Chirico. Got a little overzealous in that fight, was a little bit too confident in his skills, and needs to pump the brakes a little bit and be a little bit more patient in there. And then he goes back in his last fight, and he showed that again. Got the finish against Antonio Arroyo. Did step on the gas when he smelt that finish, but he was patient towards the beginning of that fight. And then you got a guy in Abdul Razak Alhassan who finally got back in the win column over Alessio De Chirico, a guy we just talked about. Had that nasty knockout there. That's what Abdul Razak Alhassan brings to the table. Big time knockout power. He's been doing that all throughout his career. He had that little brief period of time where he did stumble, 3 losses in a row. We know that there's a recipe to beat him. Malcoon showed that. If you bring him to the deep waters, he does really lose some steam once that first round passes. And that's not really the case with a guy in Buckley. You know, Buckley's a guy, although he has the striking skills and he's quick twitch and he's explosive, he's a guy that actually will throw down for 3 rounds. This guy has some good cardio, and I favor him in that aspect very much so. Whereas I think Alhassan's more dangerous towards the beginning of the fight and will fade more. So that's a major edge for Buckley. In the beginning stage of this fight, when these guys strike, I think anything could happen, but I even favor Buckley a little more so. I like Buckley's boxing. We've seen some of the kicks he could throw and some of the diverse attacks he can throw at you. But also Alhassan, come on, let's not forget what he's done. Again, I got to give major respect to him too. He can decapitate you as well. So I'm very, very intrigued to see how this fight takes place in the first round. Once it goes past the first round into the second, third rounds, I really think Buckley has potential to take this fight over, especially if he sticks to a smart game plan where he implements some wrestling and some clinch work. I think that it could really, really benefit him here, and I hope that's what he does. I'm not sure if that's what he's going to do, though. I don't know. Buckley loves to entertain a slugfest, a very exciting type of fight. He's fully willing to oblige you there. If you want to meet him in the middle and throw down, we've seen him do that. And you see Judo Thunder over here working on some grappling. That's what he needs to do, and work on some cardio. But, a phenom is Abdul. I do respect his game, and he's a guy that I do enjoy watching throw down. I got to favor Joaquin Buckley here. I think I kind of brushed upon those points of why I'm taking him to win the fight. Most importantly being, as this fight hits the second and third rounds, I really edge him there. Buckley right around a minus 150 to a minus 145, up to a minus 155 range, right around the range there, with the comeback on Abdul Razak Alhassan at plus 125. A guy that was really being disrespected after those 3 losses, but gets that big knockout, gets a little bit more respect on his name from a betting perspective. Once again, people understanding he can put you out, and Buckley could be put out as well. We've seen Holland knock him out. He is susceptible to being tagged in his own right. There's definitely no question about that. But I do edge Joaquin Buckley here, and he's a guy that's going to be hanging around for a long time. I do believe that. He's an entertainer, and I'm a fan. Jim Miller stepping inside the octagon once again for a record-breaking 39 times. He has now fought in the UFC 38 times. I find that to be astonishing. I think that's so crazy. I couldn't even imagine going to war in the greatest proving grounds of the world 39 times. I mean, this guy lives inside the octagon. I'm a giant fan of Jim Miller's. What an absolute treat on Instagram as well. He's a funny dude. You never would have thought back in the day, watching him when he was a top 10 lightweight for years. I mean, this guy, you thought he was just strictly business, but he's actually a guy that loves to crack a joke, and an extremely well-rounded fighter. He could strike. He's an excellent BJJ practitioner, a very well-rounded fighter. He's now 38 years old. And, once again, getting a fight against a guy who's trying to make a name for himself. And typically that hasn't really gone well for some of these guys. I mean, Jason Gonzalez, we saw what happened there. Alex White back in the day. We'll work our way up to the Roosevelt Roberts fight. Eric Gonzalez. I mean, these guys that are like more lower level type fighters that are trying to make a name, they've had some trouble. Now, Joe Selecki came through, but Selecki's a different type of animal. Nikolas Motta, is Nikolas Motta more like an Eric Gonzalez or a Roosevelt Roberts type of fighter, or is he a little bit more like a Selecki type of fighter? What I mean by that is he a little bit more of a blue chip type of prospect, a guy that has a little bit more respect around his game when you break down the tape on him. I kind of feel he is. I kind of feel Motta is actually more of a legit prospect compared to some of those other guys we talked about. You've seen the guys like Jason Gonzalez and some of those other fighters. They didn't really hang around in the UFC. I think Motta has potential to be a long-time UFC fighter. There's potential there. I was impressed with what I saw from him against Joseph Lowry in the Contender Series. He's very well-rounded. He's aggressive, has some nasty striking. And this was a fight that I really wanted to take my boy Jimbo here. But it's a little bit hard for me to do so. Just again, rewatching that fight of Motta's on Contender Series, seeing him put in work with guys like Rafael Dos Anjos, who is an absolute professional. So Motta is getting proper training and he's learning the game from the right type of people. He's wearing a Jake LaMotta shirt with the last name Motta. I mean, you got to find that kind of funny, huh? I like this guy's mindset. He's slick, but he's a warrior. This guy's a nice up and coming fighter, and unfortunately, I do have to pick against my boy Jimbo here. And again, I know I'm siding with the favorite here again, but I wanted to pick Jim Miller to win this fight so bad, but I can't do it. I cannot do it. Nikolas Motta's last loss was a knockout loss against Robert Hale, a guy that does carry some big power, and he got caught there. He is 12-3 as a professional. Jim Miller, I don't really worry so much about Jim Miller striking as compared to him being more of the crafty fighter that can find a way to get you out of there with a submission like he did to Roosevelt Roberts, or kind of out trick you and outwit you with the craftiness he brings to the table. And I just think that's a little bit less likely to happen here. When these guys start to throw down and it's a firefight, I just think that Motta is going to be in his face and he's going to be throwing some heavy Muay Thai type of fight strikes at him. And if it goes down to the mat, I think he should be able to survive down there. And I just think that he's a guy that's peaking right now. He's creeping up to his 30s. He's 30 years old. He has 15 professional fights at this point. He's not a spring chicken as far as the experience that he had. He has some experience, nowhere near the experience that Jim Miller has. But at what point in time do you start to creep up to 39, towards your 40s in the lightweight division, and you're still, hitting on all cylinders? I'm sorry, I got to go against my boy Jimbo here. And Jimbo, don't get mad at me now if you're listening. But it is what it is. And I got Motta here. I got to go with Motta. The line right around -180. Maybe a little bit more value on Miller. Maybe Miller shows up there, but I got to edge Motta to win the fight here. I just think that he gets it done. Now we slide over to a co-main event slot. My boy Kyle Daukaus taking on Jamie Pickett. Jamie jumping right back in the octagon, just fought 3 weeks ago. Got that victory over Joseph Holmes. We'll be talking a little bit more about that fight here in a second. Kyle Daukaus coming off that fight. A very controversial fight, especially with me. You guys know the deal with that. I had a big play on Daukaus at underdog odds, and you guys know I felt he was on his way to winning that fight. We had the controversial headbutt. Of course, he ends up choking Holland out. They let the fight take place for about a minute after the headbutt. He gets to choke, but they ended up overturning the victory. I thought that was blasphemy. They should have stopped it right there, but I'm not even going to go on about that. Before he had that headbutt, Daukaus was the guy that was actually outboxing Holland. He was using some nice boxing. That was a major sign for Daukaus, because Daukaus already has very solid BJJ in wrestling. He's a very complete and well-rounded fighter. He's very rangy for the division. But you want to talk about rangy, Jamie Pickett with the 80-inch reach for the division. That is that's up there for sure for the middleweight division. That's way above average. Jamie Pickett, though, a guy I'm not really sold on, even coming off that victory against Ugly Boy Holmes. In my opinion, Holmes is a guy that's really not on the level, and he got hyped up a little bit. I fell into the trap a little bit when I was breaking down tape on him. I wasn't that impressed, but he seems to be accurate sometimes with his shots, but he's lacking for sure in some avenues of his game. He's kind of slow at times, and he kind of seems to fade in his fights. He's not really proven, and that last fight was a little bit of a trap, and I did fall into that. I'll be quite honest. I did have a small play in Holmes there, and that was one I was really kicking myself for. And it was a little bit more of a Pickett fade. So let me be clear on that. I'm not really that high on Pickett. Comes in good shape and whatnot, but I mean, Pickett is a guy we've seen drop the ball in numerous fights. Got knocked out against Jordan Wright. Lost to Tafon and Chukui. He's also a guy we've seen lose 2 times on Dana White's Contender Series. He finally won that 3rd fight. Comes in phenomenal shape. If you're not up to par, he could definitely go out there, get a W over you. But if you're a guy like Kyle Daukaus, who's a very skilled fighter, in my opinion, a very well-rounded fighter, I think that Pickett's going to have his hands full here. I think that this is a fight that Daukaus should be able to go in there and handle. I would like to see Daukaus possibly get this fight down to the mat and try to showcase some of his grappling skills against Pickett. Not that it's extremely easy to get Pickett down there, but I do edge Daukaus down on the mat. On the feet, I would not be surprised if Daukaus hurts Pickett. I'm telling you guys. We saw what Jordan Wright was able to do there. We've seen Pickett get tagged up a little bit throughout the years. I know he's been working on that skill set of his, but I still think Daukaus has the edge there. I had the pleasure of chatting it up with Daukaus, and one of the things he said in that interview was people don't understand that even though they come out of a gym, I think it's Martinez, BJJ, and they're known for their jiu-jitsu, they take their boxing very serious, and they feel they're very underrated with people giving them respect for their boxing, the boxing skills that the Daukaus brother has in that entire gym over there. So keep that in mind. And again, Daukaus did showcase that a little bit in that Kevin Holland fight. I expect to see him taking some of that momentum from that limited amount of time that fight lasted, bringing it into this fight. I know he's very motivated, very hungry. He was not happy happy about the way that fight ended, not getting that victory there officially. But I expect him to come in here and handle business. I think that this is Kyle Daukaus' fight. I really do. We take a look at the live line here, and we got Daukaus right around a -220 favorite, up to a -230. So people kind of respecting Daukaus' skill set, kind of in agreement, over a 2-1 favorite here. Now, Jamie Pickett is a guy that is decently well-rounded, but in my opinion is just lacking as a whole, and lacking in a lot of those departments. He's well-rounded, but it's just very blah across the board. He doesn't have a big hole in his game that you could necessarily exploit. But, I think that Daukaus is the superior fighter here, and I think that he should go out there and handle business. I really do. And we'll see if Jamie Pickett could spoil the party like he did in his last fight. But I'm expecting Kyle comes in and handles business. Again, Kyle will be a little bit sharper to the punch, in my opinion, with the boxing and the striking. I think Daukaus can look to close the cage off a little bit, clinch up, try to get this fight down to the mat, maybe take Pickett's back, maybe slip in a rear naked choke like we've seen him do before. I got Kyle Daukaus to win the fight there. All right, we got the main event. Johnny Walker taking on Jamahal Hill. Without a doubt, one of the most exciting fights on the fight card. No coincidence, it's the main event. I think it's between this fight here and then Buckley and Abdul. We talked about that fight earlier. These are the fights that I'm really excited for on this card. Jamahal Hill looking phenomenal, coming off that big-time victory over Jimmy Crute. We saw what he did to Ovince St. Preux, knocking out Klidson Abreu. That was a victory. It might have been overturned, but it was a victory. Looked good against Darko Stosic back in the day. He was able to do enough to win that fight. Showed to have some pretty good takedown defense for where he was in his career, especially at the time. And of course, just that one lone loss to Paul Craig, that was the one that really put a stain on his career. But he bounced back with the big victory. And if you guys forget about that Craig fight, that was the fight where Craig basically dislocated his elbow. He had him in that triangle with the arm bar there. He was pulling on it. And it was pretty nasty. If you guys remember, Hill, his arm was dangling around like it was rubber, and Craig was raining down elbows. But Paul Craig is one of the more underrated jiu-jitsu players in the game. He's nasty on the mat, and I don't expect to see that type of element from Johnny Walker. Johnny Walker is the unorthodox type of striker that tries to hit you from awkward angles. We've seen him knock out guys in the clinch with elbows. We've seen him do a lot of funky stuff. But let's be clear, we've seen Johnny Walker also susceptible to being hit and put out on the feet as well. And even before he got into the UFC, if you guys remember, he's been put out in a nasty way before. The fight I'm referring to was, I think it was the Enrique Silva fight. He was knocked out in a nasty way. That was over in Jungle Fight, at Jungle Fight 88. Knocked out against Wagner Prado. If you guys remember Wagner, a known name back in the day. but lost to Klidson Abreu. He was submitted back in the day. Another respectable name here. Other than that, stringing off a bunch of victories. The Khalil Roundtree was the fight where he hit Roundtree with the elbow in the clinch, put him out. Started raining off these phenomenal knockouts. Put out Justin Ledet, looked great in that fight, was throwing spinning attacks at him. The flying knee over Misha Serkinov, that's when people were just going crazy about his performances. Then he loses to Corey Anderson, Nikita Krylov, respectable names. Hey, how about that finish he had against Ryan Spawn? That was a dog fight. He prevailed in that fight. And then the Thiago Santos fight, he went in there. He was a little gun shy. If you guys remember, both of them were Santos was the superior fighter that day, the more technically sound fighter, and he did enough. But that was a fight where they were kind of almost sparring and they were respecting each other way too much. But that's a fight that you can go back and watch some tape on, and you could see some similarities in this fight. Thiago Santos, very technically sound like Jamahal Hill is. Jamahal Hill, I do respect his striking. I like his boxing, and he feels he's going to take he's going to take Walker to school here. As you see, he made this little meme of him as the teacher and Walker sitting in his desk. If I'm being honest, I think that he may be right here. I favor Jamahal Hill here. I'm going to cut to the chase here. I think that Jamahal Hill has potential to get a knockout in this fight as well. Jamahal Hill, a little bit more clean with the boxing and his footwork, whereas Johnny Walker is a guy that's very wild and he's flailing around in there. He'll try to throw some wild attacks, but he leaves himself open. And I think that Hill's a guy that can definitely capitalize with the big shot with his hands, with the boxing, and can put Walker out. I really do believe that. Now, I do know that Johnny Walker has talked about making some major changes in his game over the last couple of years, and he's looked to sharpen up some things. Maybe we see the best version of him. He's obviously a phenomenal athlete, and at any given time, Walker can land a very unorthodox and wild shot on you and put you out as well. I would not be shocked if Walker gets a knockout in this fight. Although we've never seen Hill knocked out, I think that in this division, these type of guys throwing these limbs around like that, there's no question Walker can put anybody out if he lands a flying knee on you or some type of spinning wheel kick. Or even in that fight against Thiago Santos, even though he definitely lost the fight, you saw him showing some signs of being a threat on the feet, even with just his standard attacks, his leg kicks and his boxing. I mean, you see that there's some weight, there's some power on those strikes. We'll see if he's able to pump out the jab and try to implement some of his basic attacks and even score some points there. But I have a feeling that Hill will be the guy that lands more in those type of exchanges and those boxing exchanges and those simple, 1-2 type of exchanges and those 1-2 hooks. I think Hill's will be tighter, more crisp, and I think he will be the guy that lands more. Walker will have a 3-inch reach advantage. He's 2 inches taller. No shock there. He's an extremely rangy guy. He's a tall dude. And I got to side with Jamahal Hill here. I have to. And it seems like most people are in agreement. As you see the line with Jamahal Hill at almost a 3-1 favorite on some lines right now, on some books. The comeback on Johnny Walker, almost as high as plus 240. Maybe some value on Walker, especially if you're looking for him to get a knockout or something wild like that. Maybe he can go in there and score some points too and do enough to win 3 rounds. That's not out of the realm. I really don't believe so. Walker is a very athletic and tricky guy, and if he sharpens some things up, I mean, you can't tell me he can't go out there, land some heavy leg kicks, use his long arms and his reach to score some points there, and maybe wobble Hill a little bit and also win a decision. It's not out of the realm. But when you break down the tape on these two guys, I gotta favor Jamahal Hill to be the better fighter here and the fighter that's more likely to get his hand raised at the end of the day. I do believe that. And I think Hill has some legit potential in the light heavyweight division. This is a guy that can get a victory here and start to really get some big name matchups in the division. The light heavyweight division is a little bit more shallow division, and Hill's a guy, although he has the worst tattoo in the game, hands down, he's a guy that has a nasty attitude, and he can go out there and starch a lot of guys in the division. So I'm excited for this fight. I do side with Jamahal Hill to win the fight, and I think that he gets a finish. I think if these guys go in there, they throw down, I think Hill lands a shot, and maybe we see something that's almost as nasty as that one fight I referred to earlier over in Jungle Fights, where Johnny Walker was wobbling, doing the chicken leg, falling down, getting back up, being put out again. It was nasty. We may see something similar to that, and I got Jamahal Hill to win the main event fight here. All right, so that's going to wrap up Fight Night Walker versus Hill. For my parting words, I'll leave you guys with this. I'll kind of branch off what we talked about earlier. If you guys are still smoking cigarettes, you really want to look into quitting doing that. Hopefully there's not too many of you guys that are even smoking these days that are listening to this. But if you are, try out the gum, the patches, whatever you need to do. Do a cold turkey. Find a support system. Cut the cigarettes out. That's what we'll leave. We'll leave you guys on that note. There's no reason for you to be smoking cigarettes these days with the knowledge that we have. It's no good for you. You'll feel better. You'll smell better. The girls will like you more so. You'll feel better. You'll breathe better. You'll live longer. So cut the cigarettes out. All right, guys. And much love as always. Thank you guys so much for the support. Every single one of you guys, especially you guys that are tuned in all the way to the end of this video. Love you guys. And on that note, signing out, Teller.
Welcome to the show. This the MMA fortune teller. Yeah.
The MMA fortune teller.
The teller.